So a little tip on this, when you start getting really frustrated, don't worry, that means you're almost there. But this part here, make sure you tuck that end down into the hole before you pull the spring up over this stud, whatever you want to call this thing here. Before you get it up over there, make sure you tuck that wire in, or you will be fighting forever. And you'll probably be fighting forever anyways, because that's just how these are. But you'll be fighting a lot longer if you try to do it without getting that in there first. Okay, believe it or not, I have the rotors on there, both sides. I did have some trouble getting them on there. The e-brake, I guess, probably because it's new, and the parking brake cables, the parking brakes are new. Just a lot of new stuff. Everything was not the same as it was before, so I had to readjust everything. I had to take it apart inside. The adjusting screw here, and able to get them on, I had to adjust that thing all the way back to the end. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable going any further back. I just barely was able to get them on. So I was a little nervous whether it was going to work or not, but they are on there. There is just a little bit of drag. But that'll wear in. You can adjust them at the bottom, but they're actually adjusted all the way out, so there's not a whole lot I can do to make that any closer. As you can see around the inside there, I do have anti-seize on there. I put anti-seize in between the hub and the rotor, so that I don't have any problem with seizing there. But because these geomat coated rotors, they're like an aluminized coated, I used aluminum anti-seize on there. I'll probably just wipe it off the rim there, but I did want to get it between the rotor and the hub, not have to worry about any of that later. And the other side's done up too, and I feel like I'm to the point of putting calipers on. Caliper brackets and calipers. The only thing I'm waiting on is my torque wrench for those ball joints up front, and I gotta do this, and the front end, the exhaust, and the back end. Just putting that back together, but not a whole lot. Maybe I'll start doing the exhaust, get that all in there. Okay, so I torqued my ball joints on the bottom there as best I possibly could. I did get this new tool. It's pretty cool. However, on something this small and with as little room as there is, it's still really difficult to use, just because, well, it's an adjustable open end, so there is a little bit of play in the end. So if you don't have it really far onto it, it'll give a little bit. And being where this is at, there's really not much room to get around it. So I was able to, but I had to get creative, flipping it back and forth, from one side to the other to get a extra half a flat, or just to get it to where I could line it up on one side or the other. And I got it pretty sure to where it was torqued, but at that point I just needed to get it to the next hole, and it was really hard to get it to line up the next cotter pin hole. It's a lot to torque it that far. Rather than getting this tool, I suppose it would have been for sure possible to just go ahead and remove the pinch bolts, take the CV axle out of the hub, and then torque the ball joint to the knuckle down there, and then put the CV axle back through and reconnect the pinch bolts. But for some reason I didn't feel like going back, so this is what I did. In any case, I'm pretty sure it's in there securely, even if it didn't work as well as I hoped it would. But the torque on that is 76, and because I was doing the anti-seize, I did 54. And then on the bolt that the speed sensor and the brake line connect to up there, that bracket, that one is 21 foot-pounds, which I converted it to like 252 inch-pounds, and then took like 70% of that, which came out to like 178, I believe. So I did like 178 inch-pounds on that. It's not a whole lot of torque, but you know, it keeps it secure there. And then the other one would be the speed sensor down here. Be careful with that one, you don't go too hard, because you could strip that out. It's just right back there. And that one is gosh, what was that, 9 foot-pounds? Or let me check, I'll get back to you in just one sec. Okay, so the torque specs that I had, I think I gave them a little bit wrong. The torque spec on this one up here is the 14 foot-pounds, and I believe that would translate to like 168 inch-pounds, which was somewhere around 128 or 130 inch-pounds. Just multiply the 168 times 0.7 and that'll tell you. And then the other one was the speed sensor down here. It's not 80 inch-pounds or 9 foot-pounds. It's actually 21 foot-pounds, which feels like quite a bit, but it's in a pretty solid piece of metal, so I'm guessing that's okay. This other part here, the brakes, hasn't been without challenges. When I first connected everything, I put on the abutment shims for the brake pads, and as you can see, I have a line around here because the inside was scraping, so it made it about almost halfway around before I realized it. And that's because the hub wasn't pressed all the way in, so it was really close to it, but it wasn't cocked at all. It was perfectly straight, so I ended up using the axle nut to pull the hub the rest of the way on. So it is fully seated now, and the brackets line up good. But that was not all. The brackets, the paint, I painted over the sliders where the abutment clips go, and so they were too tight, so the brake pads wouldn't slide. So I am now sanding out the paint from the caliper brackets so that so that the brake pads will slide. So it's been fun, but making progress, just much slower than I expected. So something I forgot was the ball joint down here. That one was 76 on the torque spec. I did 54, but man, getting that on there, getting it to the next hole for the cotter pin was extremely difficult, regardless of what I was using on it. Obviously you can't use a box end, there's no room to get it in there. You can't use a socket, so it's all open end, and it is not easy. There's not a lot of room because of the angle, and it's a challenge, that's for sure. So it might be worth actually taking off the top part just to get to that. And as far as the brackets go, on the caliper brackets, my initial thought was that maybe it was the paint, because the paint did get over the collars on the actual caliper on this part here. So I was thinking maybe the mating surfaces were off, but I don't think that would have kept it perfectly even like it was. So anyways, I cleaned that off, but it did not make any difference. The biggest thing was just that the hub wasn't seated, and then also that I needed to clean out those tracks where the abutment clips go. And I'll show you what I mean there if you're not sure what I'm talking about. These are your abutment clips, and they're gonna pop into your caliper brackets here and here, and then your brake pads run inside that groove there. But if you have paint, those grooves are too tight and your brake pads will bind. So that's what I'm trying to fix. Well, I meant to show the front pads, how I cleaned them up. This is the rear. The fronts came pretty clean too, but I did get a little ahead of myself, and well, the front's back together. The biggest thing here, I cleaned around the bolt holes, but that wasn't really the biggest issue. The biggest issue was the sliders here, where the brake pads slide inside. The abutment clips in there was just making it too tight, so I sanded off everything there, and at least on the front everything looked good. So I got to do the backup still, but I did find some things on the torque spec on this. That speed sensor, there was a lot of confusion about what the torque spec was. Well, I've searched through the manual, and it's somewhere between 71 inch-pounds and 21 foot-pounds, because it has 71, it has 80, it has 21, and it also has 14, I believe, but it has several different excuse me, has several different numbers for it. So you pick, I guess. I did the highest, which was the 21 foot-pounds, and I didn't see any reason to loosen it back up to redo it. Excuse me. On the axle nut, I tightened up the axle nut. That was 159. There is one spot in there where it shows 195, and on like a Google search, there was some places where it was saying the manual was 195, but when I actually no, it was saying, I think it was even saying 215. But when I went to the manual transmission section, the torque that it showed there for the axle nut was 159. So that's what I went off of, and I did the torque reduction and got 112, which really wasn't too hard to do in this position. I used a big screwdriver in the caliper. I just stuck it down into the flutes, and it held really good. Make sure you do it with a pretty strong one, because you don't want it breaking on you. But yeah, you can tighten up the axle nut that way, and it's actually better to tighten up the axle nut in the air, because you want to preload the bearing before you put all the weight on it. So that's tight. I'm not sure if I told the specs on the caliper brackets. The caliper brackets, I didn't use anti-seize on any of the brake stuff. The caliper brackets were 79 foot-pounds. My torque wrench only goes in increments of 2, so I did 80 there. And the caliper slide pins, or the bolts that hold the caliper to the bracket, those ones are 25. And lug nuts are 76. Believe it or not, it actually matters. A lot of shops, they use impacts and they think that it doesn't matter, but if you do research online, you can actually warp your rotors by improperly tightening your lug nuts, like not doing them evenly and not doing them to the right torque. So something to think about. That's why I go to America's Tire Company, because they use torque wrenches. And Most places don't. I hate to see somebody pull out an impact and crack, crack, crack on my on my lug studs, because I know if I get a flat tire, I won't be able to fix it because I won't be able to get the lug nuts off. Yeah, that's annoying. So I just wanted to throw this in here real quick. I just kind of cleaned up in the hood here. The cover here for the engine, this one, these two nuts, they're 62 inch-pounds, and then the cowl here has 4 clips from what I had. There may be more because there's some more holes, but there's one there and one there and then one there and one there, and then there's a bunch of clips along this weather strip here, and then we have the wipers. When you do the wipers, it's splined where you're putting it on, so you want to kind of line up where you want your windshield wiper to be on the window when it's at the bottom, and then line it up that way, and then put the nut on. And when you put the nut on, kind of push down here, and it'll make it a little easier to get the nut on, at least part way, and then torque these to 25 foot-pounds. And then once you have the 25 foot-pounds, all you do is just take this little cap, and it just pops right over the top. So no big deal. And then I'll go ahead and put the battery back in, and I think that's it for the front here. Looks like it. Well, one side down on the rear disc brakes. I wanted to go ahead and do this side before I showed you how to do it, so that I would familiarize myself with it, because it's not your typical slide pin setup. So this one is on, and it's ready to go. So I'm going to go over here to the other side and show you all the hardware and how it goes together. So we have everything here. Our caliper bracket, this is what we're going to basically dress up. We're going to lubricate the insides here with silicone grease, but do your best not to get it on this side, because your rotor is going to be right here. So any grease on this edge is going to end up transferring to your rotor. And the reason I know it's that edge is because this part sticks out away from the rotor, and you have 4 here, and they are different. Okay, so when you put these on, obviously the short side goes to the short side on here, and the long side to the long side. So this one here would line up with this one, except for the fact that that pin is sticking out. So this one doesn't go here, and if we switched it over to this side here, the pin would stick out towards us. The long side would be to the long side, and the short side to the short side. So this one will work here on the top. This one here would work over here. See, it sticks out to the outside there, and long side, short side, so that'll work there for the top. And then on the other side, it's going to be pointing down away from us, long side to the long side, short side to the short side. So this one will work down in there in the bottom, and then this last one sticking away from us, short side to the short side, long side to the long side, so that one will fit down in there. So those are for our bottom. Then the slide pins are kind of different. We're gonna have these two bolts are gonna bolt down the bracket. Okay, so the bracket's gonna be bolted down to these two, well, this way. Okay, to those bottom two. Those two are gonna bolt it to the knuckle right here, if you can see it. It's gonna go to the front side of that, in between the rotor and the knuckle. So I'm not sure if you could actually see that, but basically we have these two pins. One of them has a nut on it, and one of them has a hex head. So I believe I may be doing this backwards because let's see. Okay, so the caliper is gonna go on this way, so the top one will be our one with the Allen or the hex screw. So if it goes on this way, then our hex is going to go in here. Okay, so this we're going to want to basically torque down in there. That's going to go to 29 foot-pounds. The other side I had in, I got this tool to be able to tighten it, and there's not enough room to get the torque wrench with it in there. So the other side I just did as tight as I could and didn't take the bracket back off. I know I could have, but I didn't. These back here are not super tight. The bracket bolts are 34 foot-pounds, and then these up here are going to be 29. So this one you're going to torque down. Hopefully you have one of these, otherwise you're just going to have to kind of guess at it. And then you can torque that down to 29 and put your 4 little brackets on. Now on this one, this piece, the way I figured it out, the shorter end is going to be pointed away from you or towards the back. So this is going to slide down over this, and it's going to hook onto that bottom lip there, and it's also going to hook onto the lip of the caliper here. Okay, now this one is going to go through this eyelet thing in the caliper, and the nipple end is going to go towards the back, so away from you or towards where the brake hose is at. Okay, so that's basically going to be right here, and inside that will be your bolt, which is going to screw into here. Although before it screws into there, it will be going through this bushing inside of the caliper. So this will be basically what anchors the caliper there, and the other side will be like a slide pin that doesn't actually attach. It just is like a chamber in the caliper that slides on the pin there. So I hope I didn't make that too confusing. Once you get the everything set up in there and you have those guides in there, your brake pads will slide in to those grooves there. It's always going to be the curve towards the outside, so one here, one on the opposite side, and then once you do that, you're going to need to compress your caliper. Okay, make sure you keep an eye on your brake fluid in the reservoir, because if you don't and you're doing all 4 of these and compressing them, you may overflow your brake fluid, and brake fluid likes to eat paint, so you might make a mess. This helps really well. On the back, you can actually feed this directly into the caliper piston and back this up against the arms on the end there and tighten it up, and it'll compress the piston back. Now on the front ones, because it's further, stick a socket into the piston cup, and then the back of the socket will go against here, and you tighten it and it'll compress it in. It's real handy. They do have ones that are for different setups where you have to twist them like a screw in, but this particular type, you just tighten it and it compresses the piston back into the caliper. And I think we're ready to put this one together. So hopefully I explained that pretty well. I'll go ahead and put this one together, and then it's going to be time to stabilize the suspension and do a whole bunch of torquing. So I'll get back to you after this.